Tonight, we are going to be talking about iron. My name is Joette Calabrese, for those of you who don't know me, and for those who do, hi, old friends. I see all my friends, Shelly, Chelsea, Joan, hi Joan, Lynn Smith, Sandy. Oh, it's so much fun to see everyone every week. We've been doing this for over a year, so we've gotten quite a gathering, which is fabulous. Normally we reach about 250 people join us every week. That's just an average live. And then after that, it goes to 3,000 over the next few days, 4,000. We've had as much as, I believe, 12,000, 15,000, something like that within a few days. So for those who don't see me live, they can always, of course, go back. So you can share this with your friends. And many people don't like Facebook Live, or Facebook, I should say. So be sure to tell them we're on YouTube also. This is on YouTube, and there are other formats as well, but I don't remember them. I'm just thinking YouTube right now. Yeah, I love that song too, Joanne. All right. Is there a remedy to improve poor iron absorption? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. How did you know? So iron, we need it, but not too much and not too little. If iron metabolism such as anemia, this is what I wrote out, and more is a problem, what do we do instead of using iron pills? I've got you covered. A lot of people take iron pills. I think they cause problems. Too much iron can cause constipation. That's just the least of our problems. But it can cause other conditions as well, because the gross use of supplements and nutrients and vitamins, etc., microorganisms, all of that, I believe, are not as well formulated scientifically as homeopathy is. You know, we don't change our paradigm every couple of years and say, first take ascorbic acid. No, never mind. Maybe it should be ascorbic acid plus bioflavonoids. No, maybe it should be. No, homeopathy is the same now as it was in 1790 if someone had poor iron absorption, or a metabolism that is not utilizing the iron properly. In 1801, we would use the same medicines I'm going to teach you then as now. The same in 1843, the same in 1901, because of course homeopathy was used by medical doctors back then, and in medical hospitals, homeopathic hospitals. And it's the same medicine that we would be using in 1953, as in 1979, as in 2000, as in 2020. So nothing capricious here. Homeopathy is not capricious. We don't look for the newest and most exciting new flashy item. We are not magpies looking for something sparkly and fresh and new. We use the tried and true. And we're going through the reason we're in the ferrum, we're in the F's, and we're going to be talking about ferrum in my Materia Medica. So if anyone wants to follow along, those of you who have my Materia Medica, you can just follow along. For those of you who don't have my Materia Medica, you can certainly get a hold of it if you choose to by going on my website. And so we're going to be talking about ferrum phosphoricum and as well as ferrum metallicum. So ferrum metallicum and ferrum phosphoricum, by the way, ferrum phosphoricum is pH. And it's an interesting thing that when I was teaching my children homeopathy and phonics at the same time, which, by the way, I'm going to mention, I think I mentioned this last week, that we are putting together a curriculum for children to teach them homeopathy that can be used by homeschoolers and otherwise. You don't have to be a homeschooler. One of the ways that I taught my children the cell salts, there are 12 cell salts, was one of them was ferrum phos, Ferrum. And the second word is phosphoricum, as I said, and it's known as fer phos or ferrum phos for short. And I taught them that in phonics, we have sounds such as f, and ferrum phos is the F sound is in the ferrum and the F sound is in the PH. And so ferrum phos is very specific for inflammations, for fevers. Just remember these F sounds. And it's also for iron metabolism, as well as ferrum metallicum. So when we talk about these, we can talk about them. They're not exactly the same medicine, obviously, but they are very closely related. So I thought I'd put them together so we could move along in the materia medica a little faster and get to the next one that's going to be a G. And ferrum phos is for, also for fevers. I don't know if I just said that. Swellings, inflammation, as I said, infections, such as ear infections and swellings, I said. And they are both for iron metabolism. So often when someone is eating enough iron, eating foods high in iron, say liver and red meat, etc., then, and they're still not getting, their iron is still very poor, then we start using something like ferrum phos. Now, I like to use it in either a 3X or a 6X. Now, for years, I used ferrum phos 6X because that's what's most available in the United States and in Europe. But then I spent so much time with the doctors Banerjee, those 8 times over 7 years. And I learned that they liked to use the cell salts. Ferrum phos is a cell salt, one of the 12, in 3Xs. And so I very rarely asked questions when I sat beside Dr. Prasanta Banerjee and Dr. Prateep Banerjee because I wanted to be more of a fly on the wall. I wanted to just observe, and I did not want to be a bother. I felt as very privileged to be working with them by their side. So I rarely asked, but I did ask once of Prateep. Why, Prateep, I asked, do you use ferrum phos or the cell salts in 3Xs? And his answer was profound, because that's what we use, and it works. So although ferrum phos 6X is easily found, I urge people now to, if they have a choice, to go with 3X, because the Banerjee protocol is to use 3X. And whenever I can find something that simplifies and tells us, here it is, here's the medicine, here's the potency, and here's the frequency. So when there is an iron metabolism issue, such as anemia, any kind of anemia, we automatically consider using ferrum phos 3X twice daily. Doesn't mean we don't stop eating foods high in iron, because we want to do everything we can when someone is anemic or has any iron problems. And it can go both ways, to having too much iron in the blood or not enough iron in the blood. Ferrum phos will make that correction. Now let's compare ferrum phos to ferrum metallicum. And ferrum metallicum is a slightly different medicine. It's the actual metal, it's the actual iron. And it is most often used for people who are weakly and anemic, and particularly oversensitive to sounds, oversensitive to emotions, oversensitive in general. They can look pale, understandably, if there's anemia, or even if there is no anemia, they can look pale. They can have either a voracious appetite or absolutely a complete loss of appetite, or anywhere in between there. When I give you these, by the way, when I give you these keynotes, these characteristics of these medicines, someone needn't have all of them in order to fit the use for this medicine. Just anemia alone would preclude this. Just someone who's sensitive and pale, and it looks as though they might be anemic and they may not indeed be anemic, and they're sensitive and irritable, etc., could be a call for this medicine. They often like to be left alone. They can also be fatigued. I'm reading this from my book, from my Materia Medica. They want to be left alone, and the slightest opposition or trivial matters bother them. They become overly excited by them. So it's someone who doesn't have undergirdings. They don't have a good, strong constitution, or so it appears. Years ago, I was vegan, and I followed a very strict vegan diet. I was looking for solutions to my own health problems of allergies and food intolerances, etc. And in doing so, I joined a group of vegans, and some people pronounce it vegans. And on joining this group, one of the things that was most noteworthy to me, that I couldn't help but actually be astounded by, was how anemic, especially the men, looked. It wasn't so much the women, but the men looked anemic. And at the time, I was so, convinced that this method of eating was correct, that I dismissed it by saying to myself, well, the reason they look so pale and pinched and non-robust is because they're not well, and that's why they've come to this paradigm. And I did this back in the 80s. I would say maybe 1988, 89, something like that. And I stopped using that diet, not only because I was not very strong from it, but mostly around that time, I had my son, and I saw some of the evidence of it, of the poorness of that diet in him. And then I was pregnant with my second child, and during that pregnancy, all I could think of was meat. I dreamed of it, honest to goodness. I dreamed of eating bacon and liver. I dreamed of eating lamb chops and beef. And I would wake up in the morning craving them. And so I just decided I was going to abandon the whole idea of veganism and start eating meat from farmers that I knew. I lived out in the country, and I decided to start buying lamb from New Zealand. At that time, it wasn't readily available, very readily available, but it was available here and there. And I would start buying meat from my local farmers who I trusted. And I ate so much meat during that pregnancy. I had it for breakfast. I had it for lunch. I had it for dinner. Sometimes I even added an additional snack of some kind of meat. And I'd never looked back ever since about that time, 1990, 1991, sometime around there, I changed it. And ever since then, I've been a meat eater, and I've never had fatigue since. Now, I don't want you to think that that was the only reason, because there was more, I believe, a little more to it. And for many, there is a little more to it. But I also want to suggest to those who are not eating meat to reconsider it. Now, there are some people who simply cannot eat meat. And that means, to me, that we need to work on that homeopathically and correct that, because I believe our bodies were intended to eat animal protein. So I believe red meat is the best. Not everyone agrees with me. Fish is also very good. Chicken is barely meat, as far as I'm concerned. Turkey, quite delicious a couple times a year, but the real deal is in lamb, beef, buffalo, liver, organ meats, etc. I'm sure I'm turning a lot of people off, but I'm going to be honest with you because I was macrobiotic before I was vegan, and each one of these paradigms that I followed nutritionally were for years. I didn't do this half-baked. I studied it. I joined groups. I learned how to cook. I didn't just say, well, I'll do this willy-nilly. No. I really took it on very thoroughly. And then I found Weston Price Foundation. Many of you know what I'm talking about. Even after much of this discovery on my own, then I found actually it was Price Pottinger Foundation out of California. So for women who have had babies and they've lost a lot of blood, the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is Fer-Phos or Ferrum phosphoricum, 3x or 6x twice a day. If it's a severe amount of blood loss, then I might use it every 6 hours instead of every 12. There are other medicines that we can add to this that can bring it around even faster. But if we're going to talk just about iron, then ferrum metallicum and ferrum phosphoricum are going to be the most valuable. And the Banerjees actually add Calimure 3x. So this is a Banerjee protocol. Ferrum-Phos 3x taken along with, at the same moment, put it in the mouth, at the same moment, Calimure 3x and Ferrum-Phos 3x together, mixed together in the mouth, and taken 2 or 3 times daily. If you're not so sure that is what the condition is, I always urge folks, see if you can find out for sure. Conventional diagnostics from a good doctor is one of the best things we can have. Your doctor, a conventional doctor, is actually your partner. We may not agree with his or her recommendations, but we do agree with their diagnostic ability, their ability to test. And I always say, any doctor that you choose should have gray hair. And I've talked about this many times. Why is that? We want someone older and wiser. We want someone with decades, not years, decades of clinical experience. We want someone who doesn't care what the AMA says. We want someone who doesn't care what the media tell them. We want someone who plays golf on Fridays because that means that they're relaxed. We want someone who has seen it enough times. Boy, it does seem that every time I give these antibiotics, within months, sometimes weeks, sometimes a year, that person can't eat dairy anymore. That person can't eat gluten anymore. What do you know? They didn't learn that in medical school, and they're certainly not going to learn that from the drug rep who comes bearing chicken wings and donuts, wearing her Christian Louboutin shoes, her 4-inch Christian Louboutin shoes with high heels, bearing those gifts. Beware of the drug reps. Beware of the drug industry. And beware of doctors who trust it too fully. Beware of big business, such as that is in combination with big government. It's the worst combination, big and big, which is why what we do here every Monday night and in my study groups, these humble little study groups all over the world, and in my classes, should you decide to go further in your studies, and in my podcasts, and on my blog every week that I've been publishing for 10 years, I emphasize how important it is that you know how to treat your own. So if someone has had blood loss, even if they haven't been declared anemic, matters not. Does not matter if they've had blood loss. They likely need ferrum phos 3x and likely even kaliumur mixed with it, kaliumur 3. So that's ferrum, F-E-R-R-U-M, phos, P-H-O-S. If we use the whole word, it's phosphoricum, 3x. Take it along with kali, K-A-L-I, mur, M-U-R, kalium muriaticum. It's short for kalium muriaticum, but you'll see it written as kaliumur and ferrophos. So remember, ferrum phos for inflammation. It's also good for ferrum phos, 3x, or 6, inflammation of the eye, so conjunctivitis, fevers. If you don't know what to give and there's an inflammation, I mean, it's an obvious inflammation, not someone told you that you have some kind of inflammation. That's not when we use this. We use this when it is very clear that there's an infection. There's that phonetic sound again. That there's a fever. That there are swellings such as pustular swellings. That there's an ear infection. That's when we think of this beautiful medicine we call ferrum phos, as well as ferrum metallicum. That's a different category. I use that, as I said, a little bit more for psychological reasons and a look of anemia, not necessarily anemia. And then ferrum phos mixed with kaliumur. All right, let's see if we've got some questions. Hemochromatosis. What do you think? Could we use that? You bet. I wouldn't think twice, because I just finished talking about exactly that. Just because it has a different name or a more technical name or a more esoteric name rather than just saying anemia or grand fatigue from lack of iron metabolism doesn't mean it's not appropriate. It is appropriate for those kinds of conditions and that one in particular. Okay. Yes. Yeah, absolutely, says Lisa. Iron tablets cause constipation, even with stool softeners. You bet. So what happens is you take a conventional method, such as iron tablets, then you have constipation, then you take stool softeners, then the stool softeners cause, and we keep going down the trail. And it's snowballing and snowballing. Okay. See, there's someone who says, Barbara says that she feels healthier without not eating meat. Well, if you're not eating meat, please make sure you're eating at least dairy. Red meat is better than white. Yep, you bet. And my husband has high cholesterol, like very high LDL. Doctor has asked him to stay away from red meats. Oh, pshaw. I have extremely high cholesterol. And I am happier and healthier than I've ever been in my entire life. Read up on the myths of cholesterol, of high cholesterol. High Holy Cross Farm. Okay, you've got the not going to eat meat, but interested in homeopathic stuff. Well, you don't have to eat meat. I'm just telling you what I believe is the best. All right. Let's see. We jumped around a little bit. Yep, we got it. Banerjee protocol. Ferrum phos plus kaliumur. Thank you. You're welcome. What do you suggest for genetic iron deficiency anemia? What do you think? I'm not going to suggest specifically for you, but what do you take from this? I hope that you're kind of getting the gist of this. Just because it's called something a little different than what you're saying, than what I'm saying, does not mean it's not a need for iron in that way. Ferrum metallicum, Sometimes I use it. What potency? Sometimes I use it in a 200, sometimes in a 30. Not a people person. Do you think that would help me? Oh, I don't know. I think that's pushing it a little bit. You bet cholesterol is necessary in our bodies. You bet. Without cholesterol, men get erectile dysfunction, have difficulty walking, or when it's reduced, greatly reduced. Women get ditzy. And I'll be honest with you, this is what I see. Not just from taking statin drugs, but taking red rice yeast or from cutting out animal fats, etc. And that can happen very readily. Nikki. You're welcome. You're welcome. Iron levels are normal on blood tests. Can ferrum phos still be used? Absolutely, it can be used if you have some of these other symptoms, like an infection, for example. Definitely. You bet. Heavy periods. If there's fatigue and heavy periods, yes, could be very valuable. It's not the only medicine we think of for heavy periods. You might want to consider that first and then go to my course called Feminopathy. All right. Can you take, I can't think of very many medicines that you can't take during pregnancy. Very few medicines, homeopathic medicines, should be taken with caution during pregnancy. There are 3, something like that, about 2 or 3 or 4 homeopathic medicines. Doesn't mean you can never take them. It just means you have to use them with caution. Ferrum phos and ferrum metallicum are not in that category. Here we go. You might want to watch Statin Nation to learn more about cholesterol and why we want to do our own research. Excellent. Do our own research. Isn't that true about this whole coronavirus? Really? What? 3 people, 6 people in the US, 8 people in the US have it? I'm trying to be open, but I think the media are working hard to convince us to be frightened to death. And then that makes me wonder what's behind it, because it makes no sense that we should be afraid of something like this. All right. If blood loss was a year ago and not diagnosed anemia, should still take, only if there's a problem today. So in other words, if you had a head injury 30 years ago and you've never been well since, and you still have dizziness and you still stutter and you have fatigue and problems like that ever since that head injury, we use the medicine for head injuries. But if you had a head injury even 6 months ago and you're just fine, you would not take the medicines. We don't treat based on something that happened long ago unless we are suffering from it still today. Oh, yes. Nancy says she uses ferrum phos 6X anytime there's a cut or an abrasion. Yes, because it could cause an inflammation, and she's using it as a prophylactic. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you, Colleen. The media are owned. They're owned by one specific political party in our country, which is also owned by, in my estimation, Big Pharma. I know I must sound so, I don't know, radical. Radical, baby, radical. Yep. Wondering also, mine is from pregnancy though. I don't know what Katie is wondering. It's so stressful in Washington right now. I'm trying to spread the good word of homeopathy, but people are so scared. I know. I was grocery shopping and the young clerk at the checkout said, "Oh my gosh, the news is so bad." I said, "What news?" Thought maybe I missed something. She said, about the virus. I said, "Really? If you're worried about that, maybe you shouldn't go outside because you'll get hit by a car. The chances of your dying from that virus are much more slim, at least at this writing." Now, will this be something that could change? Certainly, anything can change. We don't want to be foolish. On the other hand, let's be logical too. All righty, folks. I think we've got it. We've got a lot of good questions. Pass this along to everyone you can. Tell your friends who won't go on Facebook to go to YouTube and learn this. This is important stuff. And I give it freely because the Banerjees gave it to me freely and because it has helped my family in such great measure. It kept my father alive until after his 90th birthday. It kept my mother alive until after her 90th birthday. This is the medicine we all thought we were getting when we went to the doctor. This is not the medicine we were getting. We always think we're going to be cured. This is the medicine that cures. Not every time, not for everyone. We're not being foolish here. Some people with certain diseases cannot be cured. Some people with the same diseases can be cured. But to have this in your hip pocket and own these homeopathic medicines is not gold, not iron, platinum. And so with that, everyone, I say, God bless all of you. Mwah! Good night. I'll see you next Monday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Please pass this along to your friends. Let's get this alive and well in our country and throughout the world. Bye.